So, hello, good afternoon, dear students and our distinguished guests. I'm Professor Shaikh Rahmatulla, and today we have an astute guest coming in from Dubai all the way for us and joining online with us. He is Mr. Shakir Kantawala, and I'm just giving a small brief because he has a 30 years of experience, but whatever I can share with you, which will suggest exactly, he runs his own company. He's a co-founder and managing partner of a company, WingsWay Global Training Academy India and WingsWay Training Institute Dubai. As you can see the background picture. So that is what he is, a co-founder and a partner, managing partner. Shakir is an accomplished leader, strategist with entrepreneurial approach. He has gained 30 years of experience in travel, aviation industry across India, Middle East, and Africa, having worked with travel agencies, GSA companies, and airlines. In his previous role as regional vice president for Jet Airways, he was commercially responsible and accountable for annual revenue over $500 million while managing all commercial aspects of the airline business plan. So I'm talking about Jet Airways that he was looking after. His extensive startup experience, also having launched multiple routes. So he was instrumental in starting multiple routes across 10 stations spread around in Gulf countries with global network contribution. So they were not only promoting for two-way traffic, but also global network. He's instrumental in airlines growth from 0 to 100 daily flights, both ways, between Gulf and India, with some of its most profitable routes. So Jet Airways, though now it is not there, but when he was there as a senior position, then those routes were profitable. With his varied experience in all commercial areas, Shakir is happy to share and utilize his experience to uplift capacities of students and add to their knowledge. So once again, I welcome Mr. Shakir Kantawala for this wonderful webinar for our MSc student. Welcome to you, Mr. Shakir, and all goes to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor. Namaste to everybody. So again, hello, Professor Shaikh Rahmatulla, and all you smart and bright students of DY Patil University, School of Hospitality and Tourism Studies. Professor, I'm truly humbled by your exceedingly kind introduction. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm, of course, delighted to be here with you and the team. And it is entirely my privilege and pleasure to interact with all of you. This is absolutely awesome. For the benefit of the students and the participants, my name is Shakir, and I represent WingsWay Training Academy as the co-founder and managing partner. We have IATA authorized training centers in India and Dubai. We do short-term skill-based trainings, IATA trainings in travel, tourism, aviation, airlines, airports, logistics, supply chain, procurement, etc. I will start this session with an immensely popular quote. I mean, this quote always encourages travel, tourism, and hospitality, and that is what we are all about. I always bring up this point when I meet people. I quote, "Don't tell me only about your education. Tell me how much you have traveled." I repeat, don't tell me only about your education. Tell me how much you have traveled. Unquote. So everyone must encourage tourism and travel extensively. How much you have traveled shapes you in terms of who you are. Traveling gives you confidence, humility, life experiences. Traveling adds value to your education, your work, and life in general. I mean, I have personally learned a lot about myself and my work and the world while traveling. more than I did by sitting in office or at home. So our primary objective as students of travel, tourism, and hospitality is to promote tourism and encourage travel. Tourism and hospitality continue to be the world's foremost economic activity. And the topic for today, tourism geography and ecotourism, are fundamentally important to the study and business of tourism and hospitality. Over to you, Sheikh Saab.
Thank you. In fact, I endorse what you said. And very modestly, I'm sharing I'm a world traveler. I've traveled almost 67 countries of the world. Very modestly, I'm sharing this with the student. And I believe that traveling gives you wonderful experience. So any opportunity coming for traveling is always adding up to your knowledge. I will quote here, as you quoted, I will quote my travel tourism hero, Ibn Battuta. He says, a student, if you know about him, if not, I add up to your knowledge. He was one of the top 3 world travelers in era 1,000 years back. He logged almost 122,000 kilometers on his foot, on the camelback and horse, or walking or sailing small areas like from Kerala to Maldives. And he says, when you travel, you are speechless. But when you return, you are a storyteller. So you share your experiences, you learn certain things which you share with the general public. And in current era, I would say, yes, you will be sharing your experience here with your clientele, with your passengers, with anyone who approaches you for designing his or her itinerary. Correct? So with this small little presentation, it's our time to speak to our guest and learn from his expertise and his knowledge of tourism geography and ecological tourism, various questions. So I will be putting up before you our first question that suggests, what is the importance of geography in tourism, Mr. Shakir Kantawala?
Well, geography in tourism. That is a remarkably interesting topic. Without geography, we are nowhere. So I can answer this question in 5 minutes, so I can go on for 5 hours. But of course, I understand we have limited time. So
236 countries in the world. If you start talking of geography, you will take how much time, I don't know.
Absolutely. So let's start with breaking down the meaning of these 2 very important words, geography and tourism. The word geography originates from 2 Greek words. The first is geo, which means the earth, and the second is graph, which means to write, basically, to note down. And the word tourism originates from the word torno in Greek, which was a method to measure the circle or the circumference. Basically, this means movement. It means travel. So, tourism geography is the study is where the word graph comes in, of travel and tourism. Travel is where the word geo, earth, comes in. And it's all about movement. This is where the Greek word torno, tourism, comes in. So, to sum it up, tourism geography is the study of travel and tourism across the earth as an industry and also as a social and cultural activity. That's basically tourism geography for you. And geography is also important for tourism as it covers a wide range of interests, including environmental impact of tourism. Tourism is essentially a geographic phenomenon. Tourism primarily exists because of the desire of people to move around in search of experience in different places. This movement can be either as individuals or as groups, and this travel can take place either within the boundaries of each country or state or globally across countries and continents. So this geographic travel creates distinctive relationships between people as tourists and the host destination they visit. I'll further to this. There are 3 main geographical elements in tourism: the tourist generation, region, or the home, sometimes described as the market. That's where the generation of tourism happens. Then you have transit region or two routes. That's transit region or two routes. Sometimes these are described as the traveling environment. Finally, the third geographic element is the tourist destination region. That is the place you will actually travel to and visit. So these are the three geographical elements in tourism. Now, some more on the very important role of geography in tourism. So we've covered the three elements, which is tourist generation region, transit region, and the destination. Now, the role of geography in tourism. Basically, we have two kind of roles. One is physical geography. That's physical geography of tourism. That includes the location, the space, the scenery, climate, vegetation, landscape, animal life, and other such characteristics. Our scenic beauty of Kashmir, Darjeeling, Mahabaleshwar, and our various coastal beaches are major tourist centers which attract tourists. The Niagara Falls and the Grand Canyon in the US, the Jog Falls in Karnataka, our Himalayan region, and so many other landscape areas are places that attract people for their beautiful geographical locations. This is the physical geography of tourism. Next, you have the human geography of tourism. Apart from physical geography, human geography also has great influence on tourism. Different types of tourists meet and interact with each other and exchange their cultural values when they travel. Then they also meet and interact with the local inhabitants of the place they are visiting. All this interaction is part of the human geography of tourism. But again, of course, only if life was so simple. In our current pandemic situation, tourism geography is undergoing a total disruption. Like any other aspects of tourism, travel, hospitality, economy, commerce, we are not spared as an industry. So tourism geography is undergoing disruption. Well, we must now select a destination not by virtue of simple traditional geographic factors, but we must also consider the new geography, which I will sum up in a couple of points. The new geography revolves around whether the destination venue is open for tourists, what are the new revised visa requirements, whether they require pre-testing for COVID-19 or not, what are the quarantine rules and regulations, what are the new documentation requirements, whether there are sufficient means of transport to take you there and get you back to your place, whether your medical and travel insurance will cover the new medical requirements, are the hotels safe to stay there. I mean, primarily it is the destination venues. Is it safe to visit or not? So in conclusion, it is the geography of tourism is on disruption also, where you have to look at many other factors besides just the simple geography of the place. To sum it up, Professor, the geography aspect is particularly important for tourism as it highlights the relationship between places, landscape, and people, and connecting travel and tourism as an economic, social, and cultural activity. Over to you, Professor.
Yeah, thank you indeed. In fact, I would add few things for student. Geography is now divided. There are two ways of dividing geography. One is political geography that falls under 6 continents. And then IATA geography. That is too early for you to understand, but remember, IATA geography and political geography are two different areas to be learned. It doesn't mean that if in IATA geography the country is called Egypt, it is also called in political geography as Egypt, but Egypt falls under Middle East, politically it falls under Africa. So later on, when we will learn in our class, I would be explaining you more at length. Remember, as a tourism student, as a tourism entrepreneur who will be joining the industry as a travel agent, consultant, or whatever, you need to have a very strong tourism geography. You need to distinguish between Australia and Austria. And you must know, because both sounds almost same with a 2 alphabet difference between both Austria and Australia. But then both are thousands of miles apart. So tourism geography plays very important role for any part of the world where it falls? Is it on the east of our country or it is on the west? How much, what is the weather? All that, as Mr. Shakir has explained, that you have to understand. For example, right now, Australia is heading towards summer, whereas we are northern hemisphere is heading for winter. In fact, winter has already started in Northern America and Canada and Northern Europe part. We are still, I mean, we close to equator are not yet experiencing, but two different weather for Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Argentina, to broadly mention. So that also has to understand where you, this falls under tourism geography. Thank you very much. And now we go to our next question for you, Mr. Shakir. What is the nature or ecological tourism and its importance? The importance of nature and ecology in tourism. We'd like to hear from you.
Sure, Professor. Well, when you mention the word ecology, one quote comes to mind. Again, I quote, "Only when the last tree has died and after the last river has been poisoned and after the last fish has been caught, we will then realize that we cannot eat money." Unquote. So it's all about ecology. Money will not help us if there is no earth left for us. So let us briefly discuss the term ecology before we go into the ecological tourism part of it. Ecology revolves around the relationship between all kinds of organisms and their habitats. In simple terms, it is all about the relationship between living things and their surroundings. That's the main definition of ecology. Ecological tourism, or ecotourism as we all very easily call it, revolves around traveling responsibly. When we promote travel to fragile, pristine, and relatively undisturbed natural areas, we must also promote conservation and environment and improving the well-being of the local people. It's all a package. Ecotourism is basically a small-scale alternative to the standard commercial mass tourism. It is extremely critical to encourage and practice ecological tourism so that future generations may continue to experience destinations in a relatively good condition as our forefathers saw it and as we are seeing it. The IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, defines ecotourism as, quote, environmentally responsible travel to relatively undisturbed natural areas to enjoy and appreciate nature and the culture while preserving it for the future and promoting conservation, unquote. A little complicated, a little long, but it's a very, very important definition for ecotourism by IUCN. I'll again repeat it quickly. The definition by IUCN says that ecotourism is environmentally responsible travel to relatively undisturbed natural areas to enjoy and appreciate nature and culture while preserving it for the future and promoting conservation. That's the key. Now, nature tourism is part of ecological tourism, and ecological tourism is part of sustainable tourism. These are all closely interlinked. These terms are all used in an interchangeable way. Nature and ecological tourism is extremely important because all natural areas, especially legally protected areas, constitute the most popular tourist destinations around the world. So whatever is legally protected, what is natural, is always most popular. The COVID disaster has also taught us to respect and enjoy more of what nature has given us. I mean, the Earth was formed, around 4.5 billion years ago. But in the past few decades, we have worked very hard to destroy it. I mean, Mother Earth gives us all the resources we need. The Earth's natural resources include air, water, soil, minerals, plants, and animals. We must take care and conserve these resources for future generations. Back to ecotourism. Ecotourism educates people to sustain and appreciate the environment and ecology of the place. Ecotourism is all about responsible travel to natural and cultural areas by conserving the environment and sustaining the well-being of the local people. These are very key and important components of ecotourism. In fact, I personally feel that everyone must practice ecotourism wherever they travel to and everywhere they go. I mean, here are my simple tips to honor ecotourism. One, do not litter. Dispose all your trash in proper garbage bins or waste collection areas. This is something very basic. Our Prime Minister has been saying this for so many years, and I mean, we should listen to him for this very important aspect. Second, respect local traditions and etiquette. I mean, different people, different cultures, different places follow different concepts of time, of personal space, of clothing, eating habits, dress codes, mannerisms. Each place has different concepts. There is no right or wrong in this. All cultures are simply different. We must respect all this when we travel. That is very important. Thirdly, the third important thing I would like to tell is that follow designated trails and pathways. Do not disturb animals, plants, and other organisms that exist in their natural habitat. That is basically what ecotourism is all about. Again, in short, ecotourism is all about everyone being responsible as travelers and as tourists. As students, you will be promoting tourism, you will be promoting tourism, you will be marketing tourism. So all these things are something that you should pass on to your prospective tourists when you discuss with them. That's the reason of my stressing on these ecotourism aspects. The COVID disaster has also taught us how to respect and enjoy more of what nature has given us. The silver lining is that the world is right now cleaning itself. No aeroplane in the sky, no cruise ships in the waters, no motorboats in the backwater of Kerala. So the nature is cleaning itself right now. So all these positive changes in the environment will encourage people to travel more and rediscover the world once the pandemic is over. People will revisit these places in a different environment. Let's talk about the India story. I mean, I was talking about ecotourism in general. Let's come to the India story. India's cultural resources are still very underutilized. We have over 600,000 villages with our own cultures and heritage, which could be leveraged to create unique experiences for travelers and tourists. India is also home to 38 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. India's vast cultural and natural resources, as well as its very price competitiveness, remain key drivers in the area of ecotourism. I mean, some of the best ecotourism sites in India are the Sundarbans, Western Ghats, the backwaters of Kerala, river rafting in Rishikesh, Periyar National Park, Thekadi, Kanha Tiger Reserve, Chilka Lake, Ranthambore, I can go on, Nanda Devi Peaks, Coorg, Munnar, and so much more. We must conserve all this by practicing good ecotourism policies. Professor, I will end this answer with my favorite message and a favorite saying on nature and ecology. And that says, Earth ka khayal rakho, varna anarth ho jayega. I repeat, Earth ka khayal rakho, varna anarth ho jayega. Over to you, Professor.
Yeah, wonderful. Very nicely explained. Yes, we have only one Earth to live. We don't have any other planet at the moment to go and live. So if we, the citizens of the world, don't take care of this Earth by implementing ecotourism, then it will not be anything left for the coming generations, and they will not spare us. This is one thing for sure. That's why ecotourism take a top lead in promoting tourism. Ecotourism with responsible tourism, green tourism, and sustainable tourism, they are all from the same angle of ecological tourism. Yeah, we have next question coming up for you, sir. And that is your thoughts on religious tourism in India and abroad. This is a great contributor, and we all Indians live and we practice different religion. So at home as well as abroad, a lot of opportunity for us to go on religious tourism. your opinion on that, please.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Right. We cannot talk of tourism and India and not discuss religious tourism in India. I mean, the religious tourism is practiced since the beginning of civilization. Religious tourism remains one of the oldest forms of tourism. This is also known as faith tourism. It is a type of tourism whereby people of any faith or religion travel individually or in groups for reasons related to religion or spirituality. It could be for a pilgrimage or for leisure purposes. It could be either one of these two. Globally, the most famous and most visited religious destinations are the Vatican City in Italy, the Al Haram Mosque in Mecca, the Western Wall in Jerusalem, Bodh Gaya in India, Golden Temple, Amritsar, Notre Dame, Paris, Tirupati, Tirumala Temple, the Kashi Vishwanath in Varanasi. These are one of the few of the religious destinations. Back to our India story, students and sir. Being one of the most ancient civilizations of the world, India has been in contact with almost all the major religions of the world.
Correct.
So religious tourism is very close to heart at India. Spirituality exists deep into the Indian culture. You know, I mean, it's very popular. People are very spiritual in nature, more so Indians. The country is the destination of choice for many who embark on a journey of spiritual growth and enlightenment. Initially, I recall the Beatles had put India on the world map when they ventured to Rishikesh to learn more about meditation at the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's ashram. That was back in 1968. Today, spiritual tourism and religious tourism is fast growing as an industry, with travel companies, hotel chains beginning to recognize its immense potential and opportunities. However, I mean, spiritual tourism is often confused with religious tourism. In reality, spirituality may or may not follow any particular religion. Spirituality is independent of religion. Religion or faith and spirituality are important, but for tourism purposes, I personally believe that we can use them in an interchangeable way. We can be a little flexible, though they are two different aspects. Religious tourism involves around traveling, again, individually or in groups to undertake pilgrimages or to visit places of worship. Amongst the top sites, the top religious sites in India would be Vaishno Devi Temple, Jammu and Kashmir, the Golden Temple, Harmandir Sahib in Amritsar, the Sun Temple in Konark, Jagannath Temple in Puri, Somnath, Gujarat, the Ranakpur Temple in Rajasthan, again Tirumala Venkateshwara Temple in Tirupati, the Dargah Sahib Nawaz in Ajmer, Velankani Church, Amarnath Cave. Well, the list can go on. India has a whole lot of these very popular, globally acclaimed religious destinations. And India is dotted with destinations across the length of the country. These attract tourists in large numbers each year. Religious tourism remains more popular than spiritual tourism. That's a fact. The International Yoga Festival held annually in Rishikesh receives almost 2,000 participants from over 100 countries. The Pushkar Fair in Rajasthan attracts anywhere between 200,000 to 400,000 pilgrims over a 2-week period every year. And of course, the Kumbh Mela, which is considered the largest conglomeration of religious tourists and religious pilgrims, witnesses millions. In fact, in 2013, when they had the Maha Kumbh Mela, numerous reports suggest that an estimated 120 million people visited the Maha Kumbh Mela in Allahabad over a 2-month period. This is some sort of a world record. While most of these events and festivals have a religious bent, they successfully attract international and domestic tourists in search of just a leisure or a holiday or spirituality, though they are religious in nature. People come for all purposes. So I think that's about religious tourism, sir.
Yes, in fact, whatever you have said, the student must realize that this is a great revenue generating industry. It's not the feeling of the people, because some would have some commitment, some oath, certain things, they would go for that. But then again, it creates jobs, it creates employment, it fills hotel, it gives business to airline, it gives business to trains and so on and so forth, like Hajj, for example. It happens every year. Other than this year, it happens every year. And almost 2.5 million people come from all over the world. So it's a big business. And tourism gets revenue out of this pilgrimage activities. Good. We have to move on. And our student, and we would request you to please say us something about the impact of climate change on tourist destination. Impact of climate change.
Sure. I mean, very important, because we cannot have a webinar or a discussion on tourism geography and ecological tourism without discussing climate change and global warming. It all goes hand in hand. So yes, it's a very important question and topic you bring up here. The entire importance of focusing on ecotourism is to reduce the impact of climate change, which is partly initiated by us human beings and also by tourism in a big way. Climate change is defined as a gradual change in all the interconnected weather elements on our planet Earth over an approximate period of 30 years. That's a climate change process. All data indicates that the Earth is warming, and it is up to us to take corrective action for a healthier planet. For understanding climate change, it is important to understand the term GHG, Golf Hotel Golf. That's greenhouse gas. A greenhouse gas is a gas in the atmosphere which absorbs and re-emits heat, and thereby keeps the planet's atmosphere warmer than it should be. The main GHGs in the Earth's atmosphere are water vapor, carbon dioxide, you have methane, nitrous oxide, and ozone. The fast increasing levels of these GHGs in the atmosphere causes global warming and climate change. Tourism is an industry which is adversely affected by climate change, but it also makes significant negative contribution. It makes a huge contribution negatively to the climate change and GHG emissions. This is especially due to the modes of passenger transportation and the hospitality infrastructure like airplanes and hotels. Tourism is responsible for around 5% of the global GHG emissions, which is very surprising and which is very high. Rising sea levels, flooding, and extreme wind conditions are few of the outcomes of climate change and global warming. Climate change is a very complex blend of interwoven factors and adversely affects tourism and tourist destinations. Further complicating things, tourism itself contributes to climate change, as I said. It's a vicious cycle of tourism contributing to climate change. Some of the world's most beautiful places are now threatened by climate change. I can give you a few examples of some very popular places which are in danger because of climate change. Primarily Fiji. We all know of Fiji, the island in South Pacific. These attract tourists for world-class snorkeling and scuba diving. However, the coastal regions in Fiji have become, they are eroding due to the rising sea levels. Of course, all this is caused by climate change. As the salt water seeps into the land, it is destroying the local farms and displacing people living there. On top of that, increasing tropical cyclones, and these have destructed the island. Then you have the Amazon. The Amazon rainforest is a lush tropical jungle encompassing more than 2 million square miles in South America. The area is home to 10% of the world's known species. Its biodiversity draws tourists to 9 different countries in the Amazon area. Yet, the rising temperatures have threatened those very animals. Last year, the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, warned that half of the wildlife in the Amazon could disappear in the next 50 years itself. So this is a huge issue which needs to be addressed. Going more further, moving ahead, Alaska. The mountain peaks, rushing rivers, the beautiful terrain is currently amongst the most vulnerable destinations in the world. Threats include receding coastline, melting ice caps, crumbling roads. Not only that, the wildlife is suffering too, and some are at risk of again becoming extinct. Then we have the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. The Great Barrier Reef has very rapidly suffered an 89% decrease in development of new coral. The giant reef, which sits off the northern coast of Australia, attracts more than 2 million tourists every year and generates USD 4 to 5 billion in tourism revenue. The reef system, which includes almost 3,000 individual reefs stretched over 900 islands, is currently dying, and dying rapidly from the heat stress and from climate-induced factors. We also have the Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe, in western Zimbabwe. These are considered the largest waterfalls in the world. But extreme weather and serious droughts caused by climate change again have caused the flows to already begin dropping. Also, climate change has been a key factor in the crumbling and demise of the popular Angkor Wat site in Cambodia. So it's a very sad story to see so much happening around us. And of course, I will again go back to our own India story, which is very important. In India, climate change and global warming is impacting the mountains, beaches, forests, and other natural areas of importance. Take the case of Ladakh, which has a limited supply of water. Residents have adapted to living with less than 25 liters of water per day, but tourists consume 75 to 100 liters of water per day when they go to Ladakh. There's close to 700 hotels in Ladakh, hosting about 2.5 lakh tourists each year, which is close to the region's entire population. This puts intense pressure on water resources. The increasing number of bore wells directly affects the natural springs on which the local population depends for their drinking water. Ladakh cannot sustain such intense tourism pressure for a long time. So also the backwaters of Kerala are badly impacted by the motorboats. Mahabaleshwar, Kodaikanal, Shimla, Gangtok, Manali are all overutilized. I mean, all these places are being, of course, right now, again, with the pandemic, they are waiting for tourists to come back. But when tourism starts, we should not overutilize them. We should effectively utilize them. We want to save our planet Earth and keep our popular tourism spots safe. Then we must work towards reducing global warming. I always say that if we ignore all this now, we are all at the risk of being grilled, fried, and toasted. If we don't take care of the earth, I will repeat, we are all at the risk of being grilled, fried, and toasted. I mean, this should get everyone's attention. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for very geniusly picking up wonderful example from different tourism attraction in the world who have been impacted by, by the impact of the incoming, what has happened due to climate change. You genuinely picked up very nice example from all over the world. I would also add up one country when ozone layer was found having a crack in it, and then the global warming was discussed about 25 years back when Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister of UK. In that meeting, after that, the awareness of climate change has been felt a lot. I would put up what Maldives did. The president of Maldives, along with his team of ministers, he held his meeting sitting in the water with the table and the suit on. And he gave the message to the world, stop global warming, we are sinking. If you don't if you don't work towards saving climate change impact, one day we would have gone. That was a wonderful message picked up all over the world by Maldives. Okay, one of the student, Amit Gupta, has asked while we were talking on climate change. His question is tourism contributor to climate change, or is tourism responsible for climate change?
Absolutely, very relevant question. Tourism is largely responsible for climate change. I mean, when tourists travel by air, the carbon dioxide released in the atmosphere by the aircraft itself is a concern. Of course, airlines are now waking up to it. You have airlines who have, totally operated flights which have reduced the emissions to a large extent. But tourism does contribute to climate change by virtue of people going and, as I said earlier, littering the places, encroaching into the area of the natural habitat, harming animals, harming the flora, fauna of the place they visit. So yes, tourism is a contributor to the climate change issue.
Yes, tourism is not only the contributor, one of the contributors.
One of the no doubt, no doubt. And again, a small one. I would say from various researches I recall reading that tourism contributes to 4.5 or 5% of the total problem.
Yes.
It's minimal, but 5%, if that can be reduced, it's a big step ahead. So in ratio, it's a small amount.
You know, the factories, the public transport. Now, even those who are not tourists have to use public transport.
True.
I mean, I've lived in Dubai, so look at transport around. There are 500,000 cars on the roads, car, truck, buses, whatever you call it. Dubai and UAE account for 500,000 vehicles on the road on any single given day. And most of those are one driver, and that's all. Nobody other than him or her. So these are all contributors. They are not all tourists. Because we are talking on tourism and the question was raised by a student, yes, one of the contributors, the factories, the aircraft, the public transport, all these factors are responsible for tourism. Now with this topics comes up one wonderful topic in a question to put before you, Mr. Shakir, where you have been living and even I lived for almost about 9 years. Towards the tail end of my stay abroad. And that is the wonderful destination of Dubai. Growth of Dubai as a tourist destination. You have been living there for longer than me. Of course, I lived in other parts of Gulf and other countries, but you have been living there for quite a long time. And you have seen various things. We would like to hear from you, because that's the most visited place right now. Over 1 million Indian tourists go to Dubai. We would like to hear from you.
True. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for bringing up Dubai with relation to tourism. But Dubai and tourism actually go hand in hand. That's because there is so much that many other destinations can study and then implement the Dubai model. That's also very important. But Dubai has done a couple of things which is right. To start with, on the 7th of July, Dubai was one of the first tourist destinations to open up post the COVID lockdowns. That was a very bold step taken by the Dubai authorities. Pre-pandemic, Dubai has grown to be amongst the top 10 destination cities across the world. And that's happened over the past few years. In 2019, Dubai, the amount reached close to 20 million tourists. It was around between 19 and 20 million tourists. The highest number, as Professor just said, came from India, followed by Saudi Arabia, and then from the United Kingdom. Dubai is targeting 25 million tourists by 2025. And this will be it will make it amongst the top 5 cities in the world. The target may become 2026 now, because we write off this year, 2020, because nothing happened this year. So that's one setback. In the same period, 2019, when Dubai welcomed almost 20 million tourists, India as a whole country welcomed a little over 10 million foreign tourists. Well, these are just comparative statistics.
Yeah,
however, I personally feel that tourism numbers in India must be counted, including domestic tourism, which is not only international arrivals. If we count domestic tourist numbers for India, that runs into billions of tourist movements with a B. So India actually handles billions of tourists, with domestic tourism being a major chunk of it.
Yes.
Well, back to Dubai, sorry. Dubai is all about being the biggest, the largest, the best. But before all the tourist attractions can be marketed and promoted, all destinations, every destination must first get a few fundamentals right. It's not about what you have over here. You have to have some very strong fundamentals. And this is a case study for many destinations for building a destination, how Dubai has done it. I mean, Dubai did not wait for things to happen. Dubai made them happen.
Very correct.
Dubai did whatever it had to do so it could increase its share of tourism. Dubai's growing tourism numbers are proof of the robust destination development strategy executed by the Department of Tourism and Commerce Marketing, DTCM. They are a very proactive body in Dubai who have developed the destination. Excellent infrastructure, choices of accommodation, comprehensive air connectivity, with easy access to proactive policies. These are the main aspects that ensure Dubai's success. Dubai remains price competitive and delivers exceptional quality of service and not only attracts first-time visitors, but ensures that tourists become Dubai loyalists and advocate longer-term attachment for multiple visits. It's not just that one visit. Dubai lures you to come here multiple times. I mean, let's briefly discuss and see where Dubai stands in relation to ecotourism, because our today's main subject is ecotourism and sustainability. So let's relate the subject and Dubai. The Dubai Tourism and Commerce Marketing team, DTCM team, have always placed great emphasis on ecotourism and sustainability as its tourism policy. I mean, to start with, Dubai has carbon calculator software for hotels, which was rolled out in 2017. The hotels have to follow this carbon calculator software. Hotel emission analysis reports were implemented in June 2019. That's over a year ago. So hotels, all the emissions from hotels are analyzed. Various greenhouse gas reduction programs have been implemented already. Detailed annual reports provide hoteliers with a comprehensive analysis of the emissions, benchmarked against competitor hotels with suggestions for improvement. So Dubai has done a lot. In fact, there is also a Greenhouse Tourism Awards scheme. This has been in operation since 2009. So they make you compete amongst yourself to be eco-friendly. And of course, that was the socio and the economic, what you call ecotourism part of it. Let's briefly cover the important success points for Dubai. Number one is connectivity. Emirates Airlines connects the world over its hub in Dubai. The success of Dubai as a destination is linked to the growth of Emirates Airlines and the connectivity it generates. Next is the hospitality. As of August 2019, that's around a year ago, there were 712 hotel establishments in Dubai, including hotels of all star categories, as well as hotel apartments. The highest number of hotels were 252 hotels in the 1 to 3 star category, although the 5-star category has the highest number of rooms, with a total of 40,000 rooms, which is 34% of total room inventory. That's the hospitality part of it. Then you have cuisine. You have street food options and global restaurant chains. Safety. Generally speaking, Dubai is a very safe city. Person-on-person crime is not much of a concern. And travelers here, I mean, due to the fact that Dubai is heavily monitored and crimes of weapon are almost never noticed. It's a very friendly city. It's user-friendly as for family travel, solo travel, and group travel. It has one of the best tourist attractions in the world. It has repeat value. It has a vibrant nightlife. Well, they've got a lot of creative events. MICE activities take place, meetings, incentives, conferences, exhibitions, back-to-back activities take place. I will end by saying that you name it and Dubai has it. If Dubai does not have it, then they are probably already building it. If Dubai doesn't have something, they are probably already building it. So Dubai will not be far back. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for this wonderful Dubai explanation. In fact, you rightly said that they had infrastructure before tourists start coming in big numbers. I remember they started on underground metro in 2004, and it was ready in 2009, up running within 4 years of time period. And that is great utilization of Dubai infrastructure setup. Okay. We have another important thing which links to tourism geography, and it goes with our different time zones. You see, many of us are aware that we do live in different time zones, but something from what exactly time zone means, what is the importance of time zone, and how do you experience jet lag and so on. Maybe you can talk on that to our student.
Sure. Well, time zones are extremely important. I'm sure that the concept of time zones uh, continues to initially confuse many people. The whole system of time zones and the flow of time zones is initially confusing for starters, but once you are into it, it's fun. We have the same sun, the same moon, the same earth, but we have different time zones. Well, that's because the earth is round. Many large countries with a span, they span a range of multiple longitudes. Example, USA, Canada, Russia, they have multiple time zones. This ensures that civil time is not too far from the local solar time. Civil time is the time that you have taken as your time zone, and local solar time is the time as per the height of the sun during the course of the day. Time zones are there since it takes 1 hour for the Earth to rotate 15 degrees on its axis. This means that if the sun is at its zenith at some location, at some point, then it is an hour later, 15 degrees of longitude east to that point. And it is an hour earlier, 15 degrees of longitude west to that point. That means that large countries that span more than 30 degrees of longitude usually have different time zones. Although there are a couple of countries that ignore this and they have only one time zone, that's for, of course, various reasons of ease and political reasons. China has one time zone, India has one time zone. Though China could do with 3 or 4 time zones, India could easily do with 2 or 3 time zones. But imagine having different time zones, one in Kolkata, one in Mumbai, another one somewhere in Nagpur, which is also in Maharashtra, and the center of India. It's a little complicated. So countries adopt and adapt to time zones based on their requirements. I mean, consider the world as one big country. Suppose the world was one big country and the office timings are the same across the world, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. How does it work? In London, it would be almost the opposite of Tokyo, day and night.
True.
But people will get up in the middle of the night in London to go to work. So that's why, to keep in touch with the sun's movement, different countries have different time zones. And some countries have different time zones within the same country.
Correct.
Like you have the USA, Australia. And it's all because of the Earth's curvature. Different places will experience different times of sunrise and sunset, and that's why they follow different time zones. Yes, of course, and the time zones do impact travel. Jet lag, Professor mentioned, is one, not a concern, but that's something we all experience when you travel east, when you travel west. You gain time, you lose time. Sometimes you gain a day when you cross the international date line. It's a little complicated. I mean, we could discuss this for over multiple hours. It's a huge study.
Precisely.
But it's an interesting aspect of travel. So, Professor, over to you. Over to you.
Yes, sir. In connection with time zone, again, students, please remember, whenever you get and fly, whatever times are given to you, they are local times. So do not be under any confusion that when the flight lands in Dubai, is it Dubai time or India time? Likewise, when you departed from London, was it India time or London time? All times are local. That is why on flight, we always hear a captain always talking, the crew or captain always talk about the local time first, so that whoever is to adjust the clock, they will adjust accordingly. Time zones are very important, as he said. So it's a long topic. Of course, we cannot cover up in this 5-7 minutes time period. It's a long topic. Maybe one day talk where we talk of different time zone, weather impact of that, or the international date line, daylight saving time, all that can be added to time zone. Okay, thank you for this explanation. Very good for our student. We go further. Role of aviation industry, your expertise, we will be hearing from you. Role of aviation industry in tourism growth, which is your expertise.
Sure, sir. Well, tourism and air transport have always complemented each other. Aviation has played a role of a key driver in international and domestic tourism growth, both globally and for India too. I mean, without aviation, many of our most popular tourist destinations would have remained the best kept secrets. They would have been unreachable for most of us. And I mean, either we would have not known them or they would have had no tourists at all if there was no aviation and if there was no air connectivity. However, it could also work the other way around. We must also look at a situation where aviation saw growth because of tourism. Example, in the current situation, all across the world, it's not about aviation helping tourism. In the current situation, we are faced with such a very peculiar issue that aviation is dependent on tourism in the COVID situation. Countries are looking at tourism as the main driver to revive the economies. And the revival of tourism will help the revival of aviation, which is currently at an all-time low. So currently, aviation is waiting for tourism to start. Globally, the travel and tourism and hospitality industry employs approximately 330 million people. 70 million people work in the aviation and travel industry. Out of this, 25 million people are directly employed in the airline industry. And in India, travel, tourism, and hospitality employs 87.5 million people. Huge numbers, huge numbers. I mean, I will quickly share with you some perspective. I mean, can you, as students, guess how many commercial aircraft were flying the skies across the world last year? The amount was 32,000 commercial aircraft were flying the skies. How many passengers flew international and domestic last year in 2019? 4.7 billion people flew. Of course, out of them, half would be tourists, half would be business travel, but 4.7 billion people flew. And all the people who flew for business purposes also did some tourism. How many unique city pairs were served by airlines globally? The number is 23,000 city pairs. So airlines connect 23,000 city pairs globally. How much money was spent by tourists who flew to various destinations? Almost $1 trillion US. It's 968 billion. That's almost $1 trillion US. So the global travel and tourism industry is a key contributor to the global economy. Yes, of course. Currently, travel, tourism, and hospitality is facing a crisis. It's an unprecedented crisis. But that's mainly due to airlines not operating, not because they don't want to operate, because there are travel and flight restrictions between countries. There's fall in demand due to health concerns. There are quarantine regulations. People want to travel, but they cannot travel. Back to the India story regarding aviation and tourism in India. In 2020, August, so recently, the Indian government approved 78 additional new routes under the UDAN scheme. UDAN stands for Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. UDAN, Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. You will all be familiar with this. The focus in the last edition was the Northeast and a few islands. Tourist destinations like Hampi in Karnataka, Gangtok in Sikkim, Pittargarh in Uttarakhand, Shimla in Himachal Pradesh. These are all now very easily accessible. Since the center originally launched this flagship UDAN scheme under their regional air connectivity scheme called RCS in June 2016. The UDAN scheme basically focuses on regional airport development and is aimed at enhancing connectivity to remote regional areas of the country and making air travel affordable. So far, 766 routes have been sanctioned under this UDAN scheme. So it's very popular. Also, India has the e-visa facility, and this is now available to 169 countries, making it easier for individuals to visit India. So this is all important. And globally, of course, and in India, the budget airlines have brought tourist destinations closer to tourists at affordable prices. Air connectivity is at an all-time high now. So we clearly see that the aviation industry does play an important part in the growth of tourism in India and across the world. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Such a wonderful explanation on the importance of aviation industry in tourism growth. And yes, Now to rebound back, we would need the support of aviation industry only to contribute to it. We move further. Another question coming up for you, Mr. Shakir Kantawala, is there are different states in India, and with regard to the growth of tourism in different states, briefly, if you can explain to us and for our students.
Sure, sure. Well, there exists huge potential to promote state tourism within India. And now more so, because of the current international travel restrictions, people will travel more within India. The interstate and intrastate travel will be much more than international travel. So state tourism bodies are very aggressive now, and state tourism will be more popular than international travel in the foreseeable future until the pandemic issue is resolved. I will briefly talk about a few of the top Indian states that generate tourism, both domestic and international. Number one is Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu was the most visited tourist destination by both Indian and international tourists. It is known, of course, for its temple towns, heritage sites, and hill stations. Next was Uttar Pradesh, the largest state in India. It was the second most visited destination. Number three is Madhya Pradesh. Number four is Andhra Pradesh. Then you have Karnataka, Maharashtra, Rajasthan. I mean, all these states are in the top 10 of tourism attracting states. To specifically promote state tourism, the Ministry of Tourism has launched a program called Dekho Apna Desh. I'm sure you would have all mostly heard about this initiative. It's a very interesting initiative, Dekho Apna Desh. The details of this program are on the Ministry of Tourism website, where all Indians can pledge to travel at least 15 tourist spots across the country in a year. And the tourism ministry will pay for the travel expenses of the tourists who submit photos on the ministry's website. The important condition, the very important condition in this is that the tourists must travel outside of his or her home state to qualify for the program. Again, a very brilliant idea to encourage interstate tourism within the country, which we have so much to look forward to. Briefly, I'll conclude by acknowledging the 10 states that are actively encouraging and promoting ecotourism. I will keep coming back to ecotourism because that is the main subject. The 10 states that promote ecotourism, and they also have captions for them, like Ladakh. Ladakh's caption is traveling to the Himalayas done right. Another state that promotes ecotourism aggressively is Himachal Pradesh, and their caption is responsible travel in the highlands. Delhi, as a city or as a territory, also has its own ecotourism initiative, and the caption is good vibes straight from the capital. Uttarakhand, it says cascading from the Garhwal Himalayas. Arunachal Pradesh, the caption is crown of the northeast. Then you have Meghalaya, Assam, Sikkim. Sikkim's caption is taking Indian tourism to another level. Karnataka, Kerala also have their own caption, and they are very aggressive in promoting ecotourism. They are in the foothills of the Western Ghats. So these are all the initiatives taken for ecotourism within the Indian country amongst the states. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. In fact, the few states which you have named, yes, they rank very high in not only promoting tourism, but also ecotourism. And they have been the winner of national awards under the category of ecotourism. India started ecotourism award long time back, but ecotourism category has been added very recently, last 4 or 5 years back only. So yes, ecotourism and the growth of domestic tourism. We believe that there is 450 million middle class group living in India, middle class people. And they will automatically support our tourism industry because domestic tourism contributes a lot when there is a shortfall from international tourism. Yeah. Moving to the second last question that we have for you is, what would be the new norm for tourism in the coming era?
True. I mean, it's good that you asked this question at a webinar where we are discussing nature and ecotourism. In fact, ecotourism must become the new norm for the sake of the world. So I will repeat, ecotourism must be the new norm for tourism and hospitality. It should no longer be a niche or unique part of tourism. It should be the new norm. Well, the world is on a very bumpy, uneven ride right now, and the new destination is also a very bumpy new destination, which is the new normal. Let us recap what the world is going through right now. I mean, turbulence is something we are seeing everywhere. So the new norm is designed around this turbulent times. And for tourism, well, it has bounced back always. We saw the attacks in New York, 9/11 attacks in New York. We saw a whole new normal in security at airports after that phase. Tourist destinations, hotels, and resorts, and everywhere, security became the buzzword and the new normal at that time. Similarly, post this COVID phase, post pandemic, the new norm will be medical checks and hygiene. Medical checks and hygiene will be the new normal for tourism. Health and health safety will be the buzzwords and the new norm. I mean, we have earlier experienced challenges with demand falling down. We had the 9/11 attacks, we had SARS, we had Ebola, we had the global financial crisis in 2008 and earlier in 1997. Tourism always became the new norm and grew much faster after all these problems. So hopefully after the pandemic, travel, tourism, hospitality will grow at a much faster pace than what we saw earlier. So some of these changes may be temporary, I mean, but most of them will stay for a longer time in terms of the medical requirements, health requirements. They will all stay for longer than a short period of time. I personally see the new norms as follows. I mean, air travel will take more time to redevelop. Surface transport in small vehicles will pick up much faster. International tourism will take more time to rebuild. Domestic tourism will start much faster. People will travel for shorter periods in smaller groups, mainly with immediate family or independently. Nature and outdoors will take precedence over indoor activities. The millennials between the age group of 18 to 35 will travel first and travel more. Contact-free travel will be the buzzword. We will see more mobile check-ins, more mobile payments, more contact-free keyless rooms, more self-service kiosks, more in-room technologies for entertainment and e-shopping. We will as well, there'll be virtual visits to museum, galleries, and movies. It'll all be a new normal. Governments across the world must agree, develop, and design a common set of health protocols for hassle-free travel and international travel. I mean, deep cleaning will take on a whole new meaning. We will be deep cleaning aircraft, deep cleaning hotel rooms, deep cleaning cruise ships, and deep cleaning all our touch points. In short, the new norm revolves around all the Re's: rebuilding, redeveloping, refocusing, realigning, re-strategizing. Basically, we have to reimagine everything we do. So that's all about the new norm, sir.
Thank you for sharing all this, because the new norms will not be new, maybe new for some, but regular traveler, you rightly said, have experienced after 9/11 many things. They have experienced many such up and downs coming up in tourism industry requirement and so on. But good, you shared quite a lot of information to our student. Dear student, you are listening to our guest speaker, Mr. Shakir Kantawala, and I'm Professor Shaikh Rahmatulla. We are ongoing talk on tourism and ecology. And very important question which comes for our students who are very serious to hear on this question from us, which is your views on the importance of education and developing right skill to effectively sell and promote tourism. We would like to also hear from you, what are the job prospects the student can look at?
Sure. Very interesting, and very interesting for the audience and the students who are part of the tourism, travel, and hospitality future. Well, tourism plays an extremely significant role in the Indian economy and the world economy. For 9 consecutive years, the growth rate of travel, tourism, and hospitality industry surpassed the growth rate of the overall global economy. Tourism and hospitality are the engines of the world economy. and growing at a much faster rate. In 2019, our industry grew at 3.5% compared to the global GDP growth of 2.5%. And tourism, hospitality, and travel accounted for 10.3% of total world GDP. It's a huge contribution. The industry contributed 8.9 trillion, almost US dollars 9 trillion to the global GDP, and employed approximately 330 million people. 330 million jobs are supported by travel, tourism, and hospitality. That's one job in every 10 jobs was created by this industry. That's almost 10% of all global jobs. Forecasts show that there will be 100 million additional jobs created across the world over the next 10 years in travel, tourism, and hospitality. This means that 1 in every 4 new jobs will be created by this sector over the next decade. So there's huge potential. Let's again come back to the India story. The data by the World Tourism Council, WTTC, reveals that in 2019, the Indian tourism industry contributed US dollars 194 billion to India's GDP. That is 9.2% of total India's GDP was contributed by travel, tourism, and hospitality as a sector. The industry in India supported 87.5 million jobs, which is around 9 crore people, almost 9 crore people. And that is 13% of total employment. Just a year ago, for the year 1819, 13% of employment in the country revolves around travel, tourism, and hospitality, which covers induced and non-induced employment. Huge, huge. So globally, it is 10.3% GDP and 10% of employment. So basically, across the globe, the GDP is same at 10%, but global employment is 10%. In India, it is 13%. So India employs more people than the global average in the industry. It's a very interesting fact. So we see that the employment ratio in India is higher than the average world ratio. At 4.9% growth rate, the Indian travel and tourism industry grew at a rate higher than the global industry, as I just said. So there's a huge, huge, huge contribution. Now, why am I telling you all this? And why am I throwing so many numbers at you? Well, it is simply to reassure you that you are in the right industry with bright futures and bright careers ahead of you. Just to reiterate, there's so much happening in the world. The numbers are so huge. There's so much at stake. Just to reiterate that you are in the right industry at the right time. Tourism is a dynamic and very competitive industry that requires the ability to constantly adapt to customers' changing needs and desires, as the customer satisfaction and safety are very important. Those who embrace technology will stay ahead. I mean, the rampant use of artificial intelligence, IT, all this will be the new norm. Technology will be no longer an option or a luxury. It will be a necessity for survival. So artificial intelligence, IT, technology, this will all be the new norm for the travel, tourism, and the hospitality industry. The key words for education development right now basically are multitasking, multi-skilling, reskilling, and retraining and relearning, because whatever we have learned until now will change post the pandemic. We'll have to evolve ourselves and reskill, retask, re-innovate, be more creative, multitask. The entire concept of education will have to be enhanced post the pandemic, because what was true earlier will not be true in the future. We will have an education. And what we also must do is to focus on the customer service and leadership approach. We must develop good management skills. It's not just the education. You have to be customer focused. You have to be leaders. You have to be managers of your own selves and others. Most important. Education and skills are very important, but the combination with leadership and management skills is the way forward, with focus on technology. That's very important. Sir, open, back to you.
Well, those were wonderful advice to our students. Very motivating, very encouraging. You rightly said they have to have multi-skill and wide-based learning, because they have to add up not only just education, but skill along with it, and learning new skills which are cropping up practically every single day. Well, this comes to an end of our talk show. It was a wonderful to listen to you. Amazing. I was glued to my chair when you were talking. It was wonderful presentation of all the questions that were tossed to you, and our student got a wonderful answers and understanding of this particular subject. We once again thank you very much for sparing time despite your busy schedule, and you gave time for us, for our students. We are thankful to you. Thank you very much.
Well, I must sincerely thank you all, I mean, for taking the time out and being a part of this webinar. In fact, the students must thank themselves because they realize the importance of investing the time into the webinar. So I must congratulate the entire students for taking the right decision, for being here with us. So thank you all. Thank you, Professor Shaikh Rahmatullah, and thank you, Sadaqatullah also, sir. Thank you so much. Good day to all of you.
Good day, all of you. And thank you, Sadakat sir, for your wonderful support every time. God bless.
Thank you so much. Pleasure is all mine. Good day.
Take care.